It's about that time. Rumors swirling around the NFL. We're opening up our weekly Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Yes, the latest on Brandon Aiyuk, but some wide receiver injuries in the NFL, some other trades that could potentially be happening, and what teams might go worst to first in their divisions. On today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. That's where most of the questions came from on today's mailbag episode. You can always drop a question in the YouTube comments. Make sure you subscribe while you're there, like all the everydayers that we appreciate so much here on YouTube or anywhere you listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, we've spent a lot of time on the Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors, Matt, and I to be honest with you, we absolutely nailed it on yesterday's episode. It's the Steelers.
I think
the 49ers and Steelers just need to hammer this thing out and figure it out. Whether it's the picks that need to get, is it a second plus more picks? Is it a first round pick? Is it a player that really brings this thing home? But clearly all the other teams involved were leveraged to try to get a deal done in Pittsburgh. That's where Aiyuk wants to go. And so that's where this thing needs to get figured out let's go, choose your reporter. Let's go to Diana Rossini with the latest before we record here on this Wednesday. What day is it? I don't even know anymore. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday,
right? Yeah. The Pittsburgh Steelers, along with other teams, which is interesting, are in communication and still negotiating with the 49ers for Brandon Aiyuk. No deal is done per sources, but it does sound like things are close with the Steelers, and the other teams might be leverage. Who knows? Maybe a mystery team jumps into this, but I don't think there's a lot to add, Matt, versus where we were at yesterday. I think we read those teams correctly.
I 100% agree. And, being at camp is useful for me with some vibes. So let's put it that way. I think we're going to ignore it for this show for the most part, unless some notification comes across our phone before we don't hit record, which I think is actually possible. The one thing I do want to add that I think is a little bit of a hang up is I think the Steelers and Niners have a deal worked out. I don't know what the compensation is, but I think the Niners want part two of that deal to take picks or whatever and go get a player from team X, and I think they want both deals in place before they put their stamp on,
So if the 49ers Steelers trade doesn't just clean things up for the 49ers, they need a secondary deal and make sure that deal's in place before they can follow through with the Steelers deal.
Right. So they're not left holding the bag with just a bunch of picks and not a player.
Yeah, because they want to win now. And so that's a part of the scenario for the San Francisco 49ers. We'll update you when we have updates, but that's where we're at right now with the Brandon Aiyuk saga. Could be coming to an end in the next 24, 48 hours, maybe 30 minutes while we record this.
And it's been a saga.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Just 10 minutes.
Circus in a lot of ways. Did you see the NFL Network today where Mike Garafolo and the panel was talking at Raiders camp, and Aiyuk's agent, Ryan Williams, was in the shot behind them? And they were like,
he probably represents other people too.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And I think he might live in Las Vegas. So it's not like people are like, oh, it's Devontae Adams of the 49ers. Maybe that's what it is. And who knows? Maybe that's part of it too. Maybe that's why he's in Las Vegas right now. I don't know. But
didn't your boy McCaffrey call him a former teammate?
He did. Yeah. He kind of let that slip, maybe Freudian style. I think the writing's on the wall there. I think we kind of know what's happening here. They just got to figure out they got to dot the I's and cross the T's here with this trade. It does feel like Aiyuk's going to be a Steeler at some point.
Sooner the better. I want to react to it instead of speculate about it.
Right, exactly. But it's just a circus. Ryan Williams is in the shot. And they're talking about it. Like, he wouldn't say anything. And he's like turning around, listening to what they're saying. He's like, you say something, Ryan, if we say something wrong. And they kind of went over the situation. And then at the end of the hit, you see him get a phone call and he's like, oh, I got a phone call, and walks away. And it's like, oh, was that a call about this deal? Like what? It's
his wife, right? Yeah.
It's an absolute circus. Some bad news, though, to report here before we get into some more questions. And there was a million questions about Aiyuk. We had to report on the latest. Josh Downs, wide receiver, second-year wide receiver, promising young player for the Indianapolis Colts, has come down with an injury. It is a kind of good news injury because it looked like it could have been a broken ankle, maybe out for many weeks of the season. It looks like about a 4-week, a month or so injury, high ankle sprain for Josh Downs and the Indianapolis Colts. And really bad news of the Arizona Cardinals, Rondale Moore, the cart had to come out. And if I'm not mistaken, Falcons, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah.
Falcons wide receiver Rondale Moore. They've got a heck of a basketball team on grass there of wide receivers. Rondale Moore, cart had to come out, and they actually canceled practice. That ended practice. It was so severe. So I don't know what the latest is on Rondale Moore, but that looks like a significant one for the Falcons.
Yeah, and he's a really unique player because he's really almost as much running back as he is, wide backer. I mean, but he's little.
He's a true gadget. A lot of guys get called gadget wide receiver. That's what Rondale Moore is.
He doesn't really run routes, but he's an explosive player, and he is a receiver and end arounds and all that. But they had something planned for him. I mean, he's a force. The Downs one, though, I wanted to react to more just because I'm really high on him as a young slot that's a lot different than the huge people they have at every other position, basically on the whole team. And I kind of thought, or still think, but now I'm a little more concerned about it, is he might be Anthony Richardson's best friend that's not named Pittman. I mean, they're just easy throws for a young quarterback,
Yeah, the middle of the field, and they've got some outside receivers there, but he's a guy that you can see doing a lot of work for that team over the middle of the field. So you hope for the best with the news there, because Downs could be a big part of what they're doing there with the Indianapolis Colts in year two. And year two is breakout year for wide receivers these days.
Yeah, I think he's a really good young prospect.
Okay, how about this one? Matt Judon. So according to Greg Bedard, who covers the New England Patriots, before the Patriots dropped out, it was hilarious, the kind of a press release that they sent through Adam Schefter. They're like, oh, we're happy with our receivers. We're dropping out of the Brandon Aiyuk thing, because Brandon Aiyuk was like, yeah, don't want to go there, essentially. And they realized they were being used as leverage in this, and Aiyuk didn't want to go to the New England Patriots. But Greg Bedard, who covers the team locally in Boston, said that the offer for Brandon Aiyuk was Matt Judon and a second and Kendrick Bourne. That was the offer.
Okay. We were really close.
And so that makes sense. And clearly, Matt Judon is available. He might not be in the long-term plans for the New England Patriots. I don't know if they're shopping him necessarily, Matt, but the question here is from Paul on Twitter: will the Patriots trade Judon? If so, who has the draft capital to make that happen? And what's the value of someone like Matt Judon? Because that's a tough one. This one feels like the player is better than what the return would be. So, I'm looking at a third or fourth round pick if I'm reading this correctly, based on what the value was that he was part of that deal for a high second round pick plus Judon for Brandon Aiyuk. Like, that means Judon's value is probably in the third round range, I'm guessing, based on what the 49ers have been asking for Aiyuk.
I tend to agree. I think you nailed it. And I think there is a very good chance he gets traded. I think he's one of their best defensive players. He's a unique player in that he's really physical and you can move him all over the line of scrimmage, but he's not young. I mean, by the time that the Patriots are good, he probably won't be. I mean, trading him now while he has value makes a lot of sense for me, even if it's just for picks, And
I would say, I mean, how many teams in the league would be like, man, how big of a difference would it be to have a stud edge rusher all of a sudden just dropped into our roster before the season starts?
No, 100%.
Even if it goes to the trade deadline, that's a player that I think teams are circling. Hey, if we need to go get a pass rusher, we're calling the Patriots.
That's what I was thinking too. Maybe the Patriots would love to get an offensive lineman or an established receiver out of the mix, but picks will do just fine. Not that they're tanking, but if they just pick at the top of every round, they'll be in good shape. And Paul, frankly, everybody has the draft capital to get them. Most teams have the cap flexibility to keep them. And I bet we could come up with 10 teams right now that could use them. How about Chicago opposite?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a couple teams that are like an edge rusher away.
And maybe you leverage the trade deadline and get a little bit more if you're the Patriots for Judon, potentially. See, I don't think
especially if we play him really well.
Right.
You
And
know,
if
as
I'm the
opposed to
Pats,
coming off injury.
you're not like calling teams like, please, I got to get this guy off my roster.
Mhm.
And you're probably hoping your team is better than people expect too. You don't want to tank before the season even starts. And it might be that he was available just because of the player that they could get for him. And maybe he wouldn't be available in just a regular old someone calls with a mid-round pick.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I also think maybe his value goes up as the season goes along, because as opposed to, he's coming off an injury, he's a little older, but we love the player. Maybe he has 4 sacks through the first 6 weeks and is hard block.
And competitive teams like, man, we need that pass rushing player now. This is a stud rusher that we can get right now today and go try to win.
And I bet there's many listeners right now thinking about their favorite team going, oh, sure.
I would like
third round pick, fourth round
Matt
pick.
Judon very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd gladly add him to our defense, even if it's in a rotation.
All right, next, who's going worst to first from the 2023 season to the 2024 season in the NFL, and a whole lot more from the Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. I've got baseball tickets on Game Time. It's phenomenal. You just last minute, Friday night, I'm going to go catch a ball game here. I'm going to drive over the bridge, and guess what? I can get a ticket for $11 is how much it cost me to get a pretty nice seat to go catch the San Francisco Giants on a Friday night, because last minute tickets can be up to 60% off for whatever sporting events you're looking for. I know you NFL fans have games circled that you might want to go to. You can get those tickets early. You can try to wait last minute and get a little deal on those tickets. Concerts, comedy shows, theater events, whatever it is near you, views from your seat. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what it's going to look like when you get to your event. And my favorite part, the all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball, NFL, concert, comedy tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Saw you looking at your phone. Do we have news, Matt?
No, something popped up, and I looked down. I'm like, it's not what I wanted.
It's not. Okay.
No.
Aiyuk watch ongoing.
You should be around this place. It's bonkers.
I can't imagine
at night and stuff, right? Oh man,
it's weird over here, but man, I can't imagine what it's like over there in Latrobe, PA, when there's only 2 bars downtown to go to, right? Which bar are you going to go to?
Right? Yeah. It's campus, and I mean it's just Steelers stuff galore around here. Yeah, so everybody's on the edge of their seat.
One of the things I talk about a lot, Matt, on this show is the marriage of head coach and quarterback is the most important thing in the NFL. And if you don't have that, you should be trying to get that before all else. Jerry asked the question, who makes the biggest difference, though, between those two things? You want the head coach or quarterback? If you only get one and you have to go try to find the other.
I think everyone would say quarterback, but I don't think it's as slam dunk as you think. Like we were talking on the air today for Steeler Nation Radio about some of the failed quarterbacks like Tim Couch and David Carr. Like they went to expansion teams as a first overall draft pick. And I can speak to Couch as I was employed by the Browns not long after he had washed out. And there were people here I had friends and colleagues on staff that helped pick Couch. And every one of them said to me, we ruined that poor kid. He had no chance. We ruined him. He could have been Montana, Mahomes, whatever, and he was probably going to fail here. So I think it's closer to 50-50 than anybody would tell you. But I also think it's easier to find the coach if you have the quarterback and haven't ruined them yet than vice versa.
Oh, yeah. So the way I think about it is this way. And for me, it's quarterback. It has to be because let's say you have the quarterback. Bill Belichick's available next offseason. You can't find the Bill Belichick of quarterbacks next offseason, right? It's not that.
Lions or Texans offensive coordinator. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The next Hawkeye we haven't even heard of yet.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean they'll be good head coaches, but they can at least scheme up your quarterback,
So on that note, we've seen the first pick in the 2022 draft Cody, or no, I always want to call him Cody Pickett. Pickett. He's like not. It's looking bad for him in his NFL career. Obviously,
sure is.
Owen's question here is if the Steelers had drafted Purdy and the 49ers had drafted Pickett, the first and last quarterback selected in that draft, where would each be now? Would they both be starting quarterbacks? First of all, the 49ers didn't have a first round pick because they had already spent 3 ones on Trey Lance. And so I don't think they would have ever drafted a quarterback in the first round, and namely Pickett in that draft. So it's really an impossibility. But if you just drop those players on the opposite roster, Pickett would probably be a backup because that's what it looks like he is. Would he have beaten anybody out, Garoppolo or Lance or Sam Darnold? I have my doubts there.
Mm-hmm.
And the big question here is what would Purdy have done in Pittsburgh? And I leave that up to you.
So I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, Williamson, don't back out of this, because there was a day after their rookie seasons where I said I would prefer Pickett to Purdy. And if you switched them, Kenny would be better than Purdy in the same situation, and Purdy would be better than Kenny in the same situation. I was wrong. I believe that now. I think a big difference between the two players is Purdy's got more guts. And what I mean by that is he'll let the ball fly. Like it's become really obvious, like just watching Russell Wilson here. There's been 10 throws in the red zone where I'd turn to my colleague and be like, Kenny wouldn't even let that one go. You know what I mean? Like he's timid. He's afraid to turn the ball over. Doesn't mean he's a wuss, and the situation couldn't have hurt him more. Like I believe Matt Canada was the 32nd best offensive coordinator last year, and Kyle Shanahan's the first. So back to quarterback versus coach thing, it matters. I mean, I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah,
but Pickett wouldn't be as successful as Purdy right now. I believe that too.
Could Purdy have been good enough to where the Steelers were like, we like this guy. He's chippy. Maybe he's not as good as it looked with the 49ers, but they're not bringing in Fields and Wilson, and they're letting Purdy have a shot at this thing.
Maybe.
Like that, I can envision that being where it's at. Maybe not quite the level that he's played with the 49ers, but
I bet his rookie year would have been, wow, he's really good in the preseason. He's a solid 2 for us, maybe. Like that's his rookie year, right.
When he completed his first pass, he became the best Mr. Relevant of all time. You know what I mean? So it's like just him saying, "Oh, he's going to make the roster,"
he's going to make the team.
Would have been something. Oh man, we might find a long-term backup here. I like this.
That's a home run. People don't look at it that way. But if you get a day 3 quarterback that's a long-term backup, that is a great pick.
Absolutely.
And they might have recognized that right away in Pittsburgh or anywhere else for that matter, And then who knows if he gets a shot ever at the one.
Yeah, and once you get the shot and you start playing well and winning, then it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to take. We have a quarterback that's playing well and winning. We're not going to take him out.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to Brady. I'm not saying he's going to be Brady, but people forget that Bledsoe was highly, highly established. Gets hurt, and that's the only reason Tom breaks the lineup.
Yeah, it's the only reason Purdy got a shot was because of injuries, multiple injuries.
Yeah, and Belichick had to decide the AFC Championship game: do I play the healthy Bledsoe or Brady?
And the reality is, and I think at Pittsburgh he would have gotten a shot, but a lot of teams, Purdy right now might be the number 3 because there wouldn't have been the injuries, and we wouldn't really know. Like the coaching staff really likes this Brock Purdy guy, but we've never really seen him except for a couple preseason games. And
there's no question if it's behind Dak, Stafford, Rodgers. I mean, they don't even consider it. Like, maybe we'll bump him to 2 and have a cheap backup with our expensive guy. And that would be where he sits right now. And we'd never know.
This one from Scott. If you could only do one, Matt, this is kind of a personal question. If you only do one, would you rather cover the NFL as a whole or just cover the Steelers / 49ers in our cases? Because we do both. If you only had to do one, which would it be?
What would yours be?
As much as I love talking to you every day, Matt, I would be local coverage. Local coverage is just a little bit different. And league-wide coverage is fun, and I wouldn't give up either because I love doing both, and I think it's important for the local coverage to know the NFL because I think there's some bad local coverage that is kind of blind to the rest of the league, and you need to have that ability, and especially with fans, because sometimes fans are blind to the rest of the league. Some fans, I'm sure you've encountered Steeler fans, Matt, where they're like, well, the 53 best players in the NFL are Pittsburgh Steelers. Who's the 54th best player in the league? You know what I mean?
Just wait.
So for that reason, it's important to have that viewpoint, do both, and really know the league really well to cover the team locally as best as you can too. But there's something different about covering it locally, and just looking at podcast numbers too. It's different, and it's harder to break into the NFL wide business. Now, if you're like able to get to the level where you're covering the league, like you have writing for ESPN, or you're on NFL Network, I mean, I'm sure that's a better gig than covering a team locally.
Yes and no. I mean, because it's been 20 some years that I've been in the media now. I mean, I tell people on here, my last year with the team was Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. I mean, so he played 18 years and he's been gone for a while. So it's 22 for me, something like that. And I did do 10 years at ESPN, and it was probably year 7 or 8 that the Steelers reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to start doing, local stuff?" And I did love the national standpoint, but you get lost a little bit too. Like, I'm not Schefter, I'm not Matthew Berry, I mean, I could walk down the street in any city and no one would ever say, "Who are you?" There's so many national people, you can get lost. That being said, not to toot my own horn, but I will take the Pepsi challenge against any human being that covers the Steelers in any way, shape, or form, that I know the 31 teams better than they do, the 31 others.
Yes.
And to me, that's my biggest strength, because it's true in every town, but there's some black and gold glasses here more than most towns. I've been on the radio in every town in the league, and Steeler fans are a little homerish more than others, sometimes bad. Tomlin's the worst coach in the league. No, he's not. The Steelers' offensive line is the worst offensive line in the league. No,
I was just about to say that. I think offensive line is the big one, because everyone thinks they have the worst offensive line in the league, and they're surprised how rough some of the shape is for some of the offensive lines around the NFL. Everyone needs offensive linemen, which is why they're getting paid more and more all the time.
So that is one of my bet. I will go to the grave saying I'm number one in this whole city of knowing the league. Like, most people can't tell you the guard situation in Green Bay, or who tell me the safeties about the Giants, or you know what I mean, or previewing the upcoming opponent.
I'm gonna have to hit up some of your colleagues there, and
I'll put it out there. If anybody wants to duel, I'm all for it. But I will say it is cool being close to a team. I'm sitting here in a dorm room with Steeler gear on, and it's cool. And frankly, I walk around this campus and people scream, "Hurry up, Peacock and Williamson. When's the next podcast? Go Steelers, Williamson." Yeah. That's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. And travel nationally, I was just talking about Garofolo. He's in Las Vegas right now. You don't even know where you are half the time, I think. At least you're grounded with a local coverage. You might be going to other places covering stuff, but to have a local base, I think is, a life balance is important.
Yeah, and I don't travel on Steeler road games like most of my reporter friends do, and I don't want to. I want to be in my lazy boy watching all the games.
Yeah,
and, you know what I mean? Right. So I'm pretty happy with it.
All right, next, worst to first.
But we have a balance too. We're doing a national podcast as we speak, and people in Chicago call me and say, "Hey, tell me what you think of the Bears." I'm like, all right.
It's fun. Love it. Worst to first. Who are those teams in the cellar last year that could win their division in 2024? This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn just isn't some regular job board. And in a lot of ways, in every way, it's much more than a job board, because LinkedIn helps you find professionals that you can't hire anywhere else. Because even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours at LinkedIn. Hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn Jobs. And, everybody knows small businesses wearing so many hats. So tons of resources to help you save time and hire at LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Worst to first, who is it? Naz on Twitter says, every year for the last 8 or so seasons, a team has finished last in their division, ends up winning the division the next year. Which team do you think has the best chance of doing that this year? New England Patriots, Los Angeles Chargers, Cincinnati Bengals, Tennessee Titans, or in the NFC, it's the Washington Commanders, the Arizona Cardinals, Chicago Bears, and the Carolina Panthers.
Naz, thank you for all the questions. You enhanced the mailbag greatly. And I think this is the only one we're going to get to of you, but thank you. And you are appreciated for many good questions. And I see you're a Steeler fan, but you didn't just gear it all towards Steelers.
Yes.
But going to the AFC North, the obvious one here is the Bengals. I know that their division is the hardest of all 8 of these candidates, but I have a couple bucks on Joe Burrow to win MVP. I am going to pick the Bengals to win this division. I think they can win the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be my Super Bowl pick, but I think the Bengals can win the Super Bowl. No other team on that list can win the Super Bowl. I don't think.
It's really easy. Just look to the Bengals and they jump out as they're just the best team on this list. And in their division, while there are good teams, there isn't that one team where it's like, man, it's going to be hard for them to leapfrog that team this year. You can easily,
the Chiefs didn't exist. I could get behind the Chargers.
Right. But, picking the Chargers over the Chiefs this year. But you can pick the Bengals over everybody in the North, and you're not crazy.
Who's your second choice? Mine's the Bears.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bears. Okay, I think mine is the Bears. I do like the direction that, the Panthers, I would never pick them, but at least they're in a better direction now than they were last year at this time, although they're not good. But they could win
that division with 8 wins.
That's true. It's the easiest division to win if things start going right. And if you got it right at quarterback and coach, as we talked about earlier.
And that's possible.
I just don't see it on defense. A lot has to come together on offense. So 8 wins is a stretch even for me with them. But the other teams in the NFC.
I urge people to remember this, though. Rewind 365 days, and I think the over-under win total for the Texans was like 4.5.
Right. And we're like, ooh, that's not a great group of receivers. And all of a sudden they're giving Nico Collins $20-something million a year.
Yeah.
Who's
this little Tank Dell guy? Right.
Yeah.
They drafted a tiny little receiver. Who's he? And, as rookie head coach, they can't win the division. So it does happen a lot. And somebody we're not suspecting could be it. And maybe it is first overall pick and offensive mind that has dealt with Geno, Baker, and other small quarterbacks and has made them very successful. I mean, could they get to 8 or 9 wins? Maybe.
I could believe that Washington, Arizona, Chicago all are much better teams and are competitive football teams. Those are tough divisions to win, though. Like, I can't say even improved, even if the 49ers trade Brandon Aiyuk, I can't pick them to win the division.
Right. The Rams are good, too.
Yeah, and Seahawks are good too. New coach. Who knows what that looks like? So I think I got to pick the Bears because I just think they have the best team. How quickly does their young quarter, like if it's the CJ Stroud situation, then let's go, right? And I guess you could say the same for Washington. I think right now, though, looking at 22 starters, I like Chicago over Washington.
Yeah, although I think the Lions and Green Bay are really, really good.
Yeah, and right now I would probably have the Lions and Green Bay ahead of both the Cowboys and the Eagles. So maybe Washington is the sneaky pick here.
Ooh, I just don't think they have any linemen. I think their roster's so much worse than like the Bears, though.
They got a bunch of D tackles.
They got D tackles, and they got some pass catchers. Here's one sneaky one, and I have to put my creative writing degree to work here to make it sound right. But how about Tennessee? Offensive line may have been worst in the league, and with the offensive line coach and some additions, maybe it goes to 15th. Maybe, and that makes Levis stand strong in the pocket and deliver balls to Hopkins and Ridley and those guys. And maybe Houston was a bit of a mirage last year, and they're really a 9-win team or an 8 or 9-win team, not a 13-win team like people think. And Anthony Richardson can't stay healthy. I could write a story that you might believe that Tennessee wins their division.
That would be a hell of a story.
That's true.
But man, this league will flip quickly. So look, quarterback coach, do they have it in Tennessee? Then okay, let's talk about it. Carolina, okay, let's talk about it. Easier division to win in Carolina than the Titans have as well too. So Cincinnati's easy one, and then I might put all 4 of the NFC teams after that.
Yeah, Arizona's defense makes me not put them in consideration.
Last one here, really quick. I like this question from Lucky on Twitter. VP nominee Waltz was a ball coach. Which NFL coaches or front office staff do you think would make effective government officials, and why? Is McDaniel as Secretary of Transportation implementing high-speed rail and supersonic passenger jets? I like that. Yeah, McDaniel's definitely not the president. He's a little too much of a wild card there. You'd probably start to look at GMs more than head coaches, because I think head coaches are a little too
might just nuke people before you should.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah,
a little too reactive.
Yeah. Think about this situation with, Mike Tomlin, I think would probably be a pretty good pick, but you look at Kyle Shanahan and how, got players go in and out of the doghouse, and now all of a sudden they're, it's like, you want to sign Aiyuk? Nope, we're going to trade him instead. His loves and hates switch faster than a high school teenager, right? Like, who do you like this week? Who do you like next week? So I don't think that would be right for the commander in chief. Maybe someone like Kevin O'Connell, I could see, someone who gives you confidence.
It's not Andy Reid.
Smart. Yeah.
Okay. I thought O'Connell's was the first guy I thought of. Up and coming JFK politician, right?
Right. Yeah. Not like a Belichick, you too grumpy.
Grumpy's not bad. Maybe too old though.
Actually, John Lynch, I think, would probably be a pretty good one.
Okay.
Someone to look you in the eye, convince you of something, maybe.
Not Andy Reid. Definitely
not Andy Reid. No.
I'm trying to think like the successful
there's different qualities that make a good head coach, someone that you'd vote for as an elected public official.
I'd rather have a beer with Andy Reid or a steak with Andy Reid, but I'm not sure I want him.
Sean McVay kind of talks a little too fast,
Yeah, he's a little too high strung. O'Connell's a good one though.
I think O'Connell, maybe Matt LaFleur.
Okay.
I think
I'm sure we're missing some obvious.
I think Mike Tomlin for sure would be on there.
Harbaugh.
Actually, Harbaugh's a little weird. He would have some really interesting, he would have
both Harbaughs are too weird for me.
They would have a really strong core of voters, but some weirdness might chase some people off too with some of the stuff, especially what Jim said.
I think when you get to know them better, they get weirder and weirder.
I got one actually. I would put this as my number one seed, D'Amico Ryans.
Strong.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Him and Tomlin might be my favorite so far.
Yeah. Maybe Ryans would have to serve as BP for a few years and then get the shot to be your presidential nominee. There you go.
Not Campbell with the Lions.
Yeah, no, again, yeah.
Nope.
Great coach.
Foreign relations might not go so well.
Yeah. There's people you don't want anywhere near the nuclear button. Yeah. That's right. All right.
Stuff. Good mailbag, guys.
Thanks for all the questions. Apologies to the ones we didn't get to. I always get so many good ones every week. Matt and I back tomorrow. If Aiyuk news breaks, we will actually not be recording live together again until Friday. So that's when we will cover that trade if and when it does happen. And of course, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Appreciate everybody making us your first listen. Matt and I back next time right here. Peacock and Williamson.